Good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well on this Monday morning. We appreciate you joining us. We're really excited to have our first Arizona Gives webinar or workshop. Today, we'll be having one more in December and then more at the beginning of the year. My name is Jennifer Purcell. I'm Vice President of Community Engagement at the Alliance. And I have with me Angela Palmer, who is helping me with the behind the scenes and some of the controls for our webinar today. Arizona Gives is April 6th. It's on a Tuesday, the first Tuesday in April. And now is the time to start planning. So that is why we are working with Gratitude. And we have Ryan Brennell here from Gratitude, who is gonna talk about his experience of working with nonprofits actually in St. Louis and helping them with their Arizona Gives fundraising. He's gonna show you basically what he's experienced or what he sees are kind of some of the trends, give you tips on how you can make your Arizona Gives campaign and fundraiser stand out, and how you could potentially even work with Gratitude if you choose to do so for Arizona Gives or other online giving campaigns. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Ryan and let him get the show on the road and maybe just say a little bit about Gratitude and your role there, Ryan.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Jennifer. And thank you all for giving me your time this morning. I promise I'll make it as valuable as I can. So to give you some background about me, I started Gratitude 6 years ago. And when I started it, we were really a crowdfunding platform specifically for nonprofit organizations. And we helped hundreds of nonprofits run probably thousands of campaigns over the course of those 6 years. And I got to pay attention to what was consistently working and what was consistently not working. So through lots of successful campaigns and even more failed campaigns with crowdfunding, I've really kind of figured out what is the formula for successful online fundraising, where we can build these repeatable processes and put a digital fundraising strategy together that you can use to raise money every single day of the year. So today we're talking about AZ Gives Day, right? And I think the biggest thing with these giving days, because we do them here in St. Louis, I know they're done all over the country. And when you're participating, you have to make sure that you have a plan to really stand out, right? It's this incredible event for the community where we're pulling the community together around philanthropy. And so there's a lot of donor activity on this day, but also every single nonprofit or almost every nonprofit in Arizona will be participating in this day and fundraising as well. So what we're going to talk about today is what are the things that you can do to stand out? Now, first thing I want to get into is I want to talk to you guys and hear from you. Let me know, what do you think is the hardest part about AZ Gives Day, right? I would love to hear from you. What do you struggle with? What are the challenges? If you guys will just let me know in the chat really quick, I can make sure that I'm touching on some of these things when we're going through this presentation. And as you guys are typing in the chat and letting me know, getting folks to share or be fundraisers on the day. Rachel, that's great. Actually, we're going to get into things that you can do to drive shares and peer-to-peer participation. Differentiating from other digital giving requests is a big deal. And we'll talk about that as well. There's a lot of opportunity to have a lot of fun with these giving days that will come across as very differentiated from your other digital requests. Messaging on the day and leading up to the day. Laura, we're going to talk a lot about messaging today. In fact, we have an entire section of this webinar dedicated to how you put your messaging together for your ideal donors. So we'll really get into that. And Pam, we're definitely going to talk about optimizing, best way to optimizing search for your organization. We'll talk about optimizing traffic to your page. Optimizing search for your nonprofit is going to be a tougher and longer conversation. Biggest hurdle, attracting new donors. All right, so we've hit on a lot of this stuff that I hear from most nonprofits around these giving days. And the first thing that I really hear from a lot of organizations, and maybe you guys don't have this problem because you're starting to prepare for it today, but a lot of nonprofits talk about how they already have planned appeals that they have to prepare for, and it's difficult to make time to prepare for this day. So one of the things that I want to do today is give you guys a clear step-by-step process, so it doesn't feel like you're having to recreate the wheel, and it feels more like you're just having to go through a checklist that you can complete in a week or two. All right. The next thing that I hear from a lot of our nonprofits is they don't capture new donors on this day. And it can feel like you're working really hard to throw a party that no one shows up to, right? And that can feel really defeating. So I want to make sure that you guys don't look like this guy. He's clearly just throwing a party that no one's shown up to, and instead are able to put an event together where a lot of donors are showing up to participate and celebrate your organization, and that they will be captured through your existing network, which I think is a really important piece of this puzzle, right? How do we leverage the network that we have to help us grow? So the last thing that I hear from a lot of nonprofits is it's a low return on investment on this giving day, right? A lot of nonprofits will put what feels like a significant amount of work into these giving days, and in the end, they feel like, well, we raised a couple $1,000s or $10,000. We wish we'd have done better. And the way to really do better with these days is to start preparing now and to have a plan of execution in place well ahead of time. So that's the plan that we're going to get into today. So before we jump into it, I would like to hear from you guys. What do you feel like success on Arizona Gives Day looks like for your nonprofit? Does it just look like donor participation at any level? Does it look like a set number of new donors? Does it just look like strengthened relationships with your current donors? What do you feel like is the biggest measure of success on Arizona Gives Day for your organization? And if you give me some of that context in the chat, I will be able to, cater the conversation through the webinar to the goals that you would like to achieve for your organization. So I'll give you guys just a minute to winning a power hour. All right, Pam, that's it. I love that one. We're going to get into power hours and some of the creative things that you can do to win those. And a lot of it just goes into kind of looking at, what power hour do you want to win, and what power hour are your donors most likely to participate in. So donor participation, meeting the goals of our matching gift. Oh, that's great, Adrian, that you're going to secure a matching gift ahead of time. That's a really good effort that I would encourage lots of organizations to do ahead of AZ Gives Day. And new recurring donors. Laura, I think new recurring donors is a great goal to have. And I think if we look at the AZ Gives Day, we'd think of it as the very top of the funnel. And then over time, we would want to kind of build that relationship to get them to become a recurring donor. So we can talk about that as well a bit today. So where to get started, right? And I remember when I was running my first digital fundraisers 6 years ago, I really did feel like this kid in the picture, head in my hands, feeling like I had just a world of work ahead of me and nowhere, like had no idea where to begin. So I think the best place to begin is always with the question that I just asked, right? So, what does success look like for your organization? When we understand what success looks like for your organization, we can then choose a goal. But first, we need to understand what is Arizona Gives Day and what is it not, right? And all giving days are really about strengthening your relationship with your loyal donors and seeing if you can leverage those relationships to reach new people. Okay. what it is not a if you build it they will come internet magic event, right? And I see a lot of organizations making this mistake. They feel like, well, we built our page and we sent out a couple of emails and we didn't get great participation. And if that's all you do, you're probably going to consistently be disappointed with the results on AZ Gives Day. So, what we need to think about is who are my loyal donors? How do I have, like, how do those relationships exist around my organization? Are they connected to my board? Are they connected to the founder? Are they loyal donors because a family member has been touched by the cause that we're focusing on, right? And figuring out then how are you going to leverage those relationships to reach new people. So it's really important to understand what it is not, and then we can get into the 7 steps for success. So only 7 steps here to be successful. There's a lot that goes into these steps, and the first one is setting your goal, right? So making sure that you're setting a realistic goal and a goal that that your donors can get excited about as well, right? So setting a goal, there's a right and a wrong way to do this. Okay. If you say, you set your goal and you say, well, I just want additional donor participation, it's a little too abstract, right? We need something significantly more concrete than that. And it could be a goal for, I want X number of donors to participate. And now we have something to work towards, right? It can be a goal of, I want to raise X amount of money. I want to win a certain power hour, whatever it is. We need to be very specific about our goal, which brings us to the next step, which is be specific, right? And so we've gotten specific about our goal. Now we also need to be specific about the impact, right? We need to be specific about the impact that the goal relates to. So a lot of nonprofits take this to mean, okay, does that mean I need to fund something specific? That's not necessarily the case, right? And the way to get around this, where you can raise money for general funds, so unrestricted dollars on a giving day, is when you're being specific, take the number of people that you're able to impact on an annual basis, okay? And then divide that number by your operating costs, or I'm sorry, divide your operating costs by the number of people that you're able to impact. And now you've gotten a unit economic, right, for what it's costing you to impact one person or one animal or whatever it is, whatever that unit measurement is, that will help you get specific in your messaging so that you can be set up to reach your goal. And especially with digital fundraising, this is incredibly important. Okay. So I want to give you an example really quickly. Years ago, we worked with a theater here in St. Louis called the Muni, and the Muni exists in Forest Park, which is really like our crown jewel of St. Louis is Forest Park, and they ran one campaign where they needed to raise $10,000 to improve their accessibility services and replace their wheelchairs. Okay. They raised 10 grand in 7 days, right? With that first campaign. 3 months later, they decided to run another campaign that was the call to action was just support the Muni. Okay. They raised $50 for that campaign. So there's an enormous difference here. When you're specific, you're giving your donors really something concrete to get behind. Even if that's just a unit measurement of your impact, it will work. So take the time to do that. Get specific for your donors. The next step is to get creative, right? So especially on a giving day like this, these are supposed to be fun. And Catherine, I just saw your question come through in the chat. To repeat the formula again, you'd take your operating cost and you would divide it by the number of people that you're able to impact on an annual basis. So what's your annual operating cost? How many people do you impact? Then you'll understand what it costs you to impact one individual. And you can use that unit economic to get specific. So then you can say, we need to raise X amount of money to help X number of people, right? So once you've gotten specific, then you need to get creative. And this is really where you should be having fun with Arizona Gives Day. And this is a big part of what is going to make you stand out, right? So and Emma, that's a great question. And I think that at the end here, we'll get into the specifics of how to get into that unit economic measurement in the Q&A, because there's a number of different ways that you can do it. And I want to make sure I stay on track. So if you hang out for the Q&A at the end, we'll get into that. So getting creative. Get creative because it's the way for you to stand out to your donors when they're getting spoken to by every other Arizona organization that they raise money for or that they donate to, right? So what are ways to get creative that aren't going to cost a fortune? We worked with an organization called Conservation Ambassadors out of California that does an incredible job with this, right? So one of the things that they've done is they pre-recorded e-cards, which is like they've got, you can get a happy birthday message from an otter, right? Or you can get a Merry Christmas message from their kangaroo. And they've incorporated these animals in these pre-recorded videos that have cost them nothing, so that for a donation of X number of dollars, you'll get Y delivered to your email, right? So it's just costing the organization a little bit of management time, but it's not costing them money on inventory. And those are doing really, really well. Another great way to get creative is you want to come up with things that are unlocked at certain milestones hit. Okay. So say, you'd want to think about, does your nonprofit have a donor base that is primarily connected to your board? A lot of nonprofits kind of all of their donors are connected to a board member or a past board member, right? And those board members are going to be people who are invested in your success. So if you could get that board member to really participate in your campaign by providing a really fun incentive where anyone who gave over $100 will have the opportunity to pie that board member in the face, like whatever it is, right? Just a fun, creative thing like that. That's not going to cost you any more than some cans of whipped cream and maybe the board member signing up for something that would be fun. And the vast majority of donors aren't going to make good on that on that opportunity, but it will spark them to participate because it's going to stand out, right? So you want to get creative with the things that you can provide donors as a thank you or an incentive to make a donation, which gets me into or well, in a couple minutes we'll talk about incentives, but here the other thing that you really need to do is you set your goal and you need to track your progress, okay? And there's some human psychology going on here. And like instinctually, people prefer to bet on winners, right? It's the same reason why capital campaigns have a quiet phase. It's the same reason why no one likes to be the first signature on a petition, right? So we like to see social proof, and these campaigns really begin to have a snowball effect. Okay, so track your progress so that you can show your momentum. And if people are sending in checks for this day, and like do your best to get those checks entered into the progress of your campaign. I know that you have these giving day websites that people can donate on. So make sure that you're utilizing those to track your progress and show how close you are to your goal. We see this all the time where like a campaign will have a difficult time kind of getting up and off the ground. And then once it gets over 50%, the donations really start rolling in, and lots of campaigns will raise money above and beyond their goal because people want to participate in the victory that is a goal reached, right? So let's get into power hours. And power hours really kind of get into or connect to the creativity of your campaign and to the incentives that we'll talk about in just a second. So AZ Gives Day has power hours, right? And the organization, Jennifer, I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. You have incentives for the organization that raises the most money during that hour, and do you also have incentives for an organization that gets the most donations?
We do within a different context, but yes, we do have those as well.
Perfect. So the best way to really generate the donations that you need to win a power hour is to create an event around that hour, right? So what is going to happen if your organization wins the power hour, right? Like winning the power hour needs to unlock something that your donors would absolutely love to see. Okay. So like if you were raising money for a school, like maybe the best power hour event would be like for the principal of the school to have to sit in a dunk tank for a day, right? And the students would then be like urging their parents, please, please, please donate to this power hour so that we can win this. So you want to think about something like that, right? How can I create an event where if we win the power hour, the event will be triggered? And then you want to talk about that power hour for like the week or 2 weeks leading up to that day. You want to let people know it's coming. It's not good enough to announce it on the day. It's not good enough even to announce it on the day or two ahead of AZ Gives Day. You've got to be talking about these things, letting people know that it's coming, setting up a calendar event so that they can add it to their calendar with an alert, right? So that they get an alert on their phone that says, oh man, it's this organization's power hour and I need to go donate. I've only got 45 minutes left to make my donation to this power hour so that they can win it. Oftentimes, the match, the extra money that you get from a power hour, it will be enough to spur your most loyal donors to give. But donors who are giving just once a year, or maybe donors who haven't given in the last 18 months, you're going to need that extra event to really spur them into action. Okay. And then now we'll get into incentives. So incentives are awesome. Another great way to incentivize people to take place in your power hour would be to set up a raffle, right? Everyone who makes a donation during this hour will be entered in for a raffle to win XYZ. That's another great way. When you're doing incentives, you want to think about who are my donors? What do my ideal donors look like? And what do they care about with respect to my organization and my impact? But also, what do they care about with respect to like their daily lives? Okay. So we work with a local school foundation here in St. Louis, and they just had this incredible fundraiser because they know that parents are having a difficult time right now homeschooling their children, right? So they knew moms needed a break. So they created a fundraiser targeting the moms in their school district for a virtual wine tour, where if you donated $75, you get 3 bottles of wine, and you could tune in on this day and tune into Zoom on this day, and a sommelier would take you through the regions of the wine where you could learn. People, this was great because mom groups or girlfriends in the district were getting together and saying, hey, let's all jump on Zoom together, and then we'll get on the wine tour and have like a virtual happy hour. They ended up selling, I think they sold almost 400 cases of wine in 3 days with this fundraiser. So, and that did so well because they knew moms needed a break, right? So think about who your donors are and the types of things that they would really be interested in when you're creating incentives. They don't always have to be things that are going to cost you money as well, right? So there's another organization called the
And
Science Zone that we work
Ryan,
with.
real
Yes.
quick, I just want to make sure that everyone knows that with Arizona Gives, we do have a few restrictions when it comes to some of dinners and auctions and things like that. So just be careful of that. And I know that what Ryan's talking about is online fundraising in general. So it may or may not in this particular situation apply directly to Arizona Gives, but these are things that you can take and use in any of your online fundraising, which we're all doing right now. So
yeah, absolutely. These are just meant to be the principles. So I'm sure that there are rules like that where you can't stack the deck too much for your organization. One of maybe the free things that would be allowed, we worked with the Science Zone, and they're an organization that is really kind of like a science museum for kids out of Cody, Wyoming, or Casper, Wyoming, and talk to them about being able to provide a year's worth of in-home do-it-yourself science experiments that would be delivered like once a week, right? And so it's just putting the experiment together with instructions and delivering that via email. And there are a lot of organizations that have opportunities for this, whether it be, if you're doing international aid, and where you do your work has a traditional dish, right? You can deliver a recipe for the traditional dish from that area so that people can participate, and you're not doing anything that's going to cost you money, but could get their interest, connects the incentive back to your impact, and will get, additional donor participation. So then we want to talk about peer-to-peer fundraising, right? So how do you get the peer-to-peer aspect worked into Arizona Gives Day so that you can really kind of leverage your network to raise money for you? And we see this happen really well when organizations really do get creative with their campaigns. So oftentimes the hey, we're participating in Arizona Gives Day and you can join us and help raise money so that we reach our goal. That's not a strong enough appeal to get someone to really kind of stick their neck out with their network and say, hey, would you make a donation to this organization? So what a lot of nonprofits do is they connect those fundraising opportunities to birthdays or holidays, and that works okay. I think that you do have the opportunity to do that with Arizona Gives Day, really treating it like a holiday and saying, like flex your philanthropic muscles on this day of the year and help us raise some money. But if you can again create some incentives for people to help raise money for you, and those incentives of course would have to be within the rules of AZ Gives Day, but think about how can I utilize the aspect of some friendly competition to get people to compete to raise more money. That's where peer-to-peer fundraising does really good, when you're able to get people to compete against each other in a friendly competition to raise some money for your organization. And so, we've had membership organizations offer a free membership, or we've had local parks offer, a day under a pavilion that you don't have to pay for, things like that. So just think through those things. How can I incentivize people to participate? And this is a pretty good time to get into a couple of questions, if there are some, around those 7 steps, and then we're going to jump into the principles behind how do you build your messaging, how do you profile your donors, and how do you follow up with donors to make sure that they take action.
There was just a comment about the raffle tickets not being tax deductible, and the easiest answer for that is that IRS laws around that can be fairly complex.
Yeah.
And so you really want to talk with your accountant about that, to make sure, because there are situations where if you have a losing raffle ticket, that can be used in certain situations. So again, you've got federal laws, you have state laws that are varying as well. So you just want to be mindful of that and get your information ahead of time before you do anything. But for Arizona Gives specifically, I just want to say that, we don't encourage the use of raffle tickets, or and that's all in our terms of service, auctions and that sort of thing. However, you can do those things outside of Arizona Gives, and Ryan is here today to talk to you not just about Gives Day, but also about online fundraising in general.
Yeah, that's always our answer, is check with the laws in place in your state for sure, because they are different in every state around the raffles. And it can be a really effective tool for digital fundraising outside of Arizona Gives Day. So it's certainly worth finding that information. So let's get into what I think is the real value here, because we're going to talk about some principles that you can use no matter when you're raising money. And we've talked about getting creative and offering incentives, and through those 7 steps I've often said, think about who your donors are, right? Think about who your ideal donor is. And all great fundraising campaigns start with donor profiling, right? There's a reason why I used a picture of this rock climber here on this slide. And it's because when we see her, we can start to understand some things about her, right? She loves spending time in nature. Okay, so we can start figuring out like what does she care about? She likely cares about nature. Okay, she likely really cares um, about the environment, right? Having clean air and pristine spaces to enjoy, and probably for future generations to enjoy. So we can also see we can start to make assumptions about her age. We can start to make assumptions maybe about either where she lives or the places that she visits, right? So all of these things we can get from kind of just seeing who she is right now. And um and you're really going to want to profile your donors. Here's how we do it at Gratitude. We look at an organization's donor base, and we also look at who their mission is going to appeal to. And we focus in on three things: their profile, place, and promotion, to build a donor persona. So profile is who they are, where are they located, how much money do they make, how educated are they, what do they care about, what do they like, what do they dislike, right? And then place is where are they spending their time, attention, and money? Okay. And when we understand who they are, what they like and what they don't like, and where they're spending their time, attention, and money, then we can understand how and where we should promote to them, right? So promotion is like, where should we be delivering the message? What should the message say? And how should the message be delivered, right? So we have this donor persona worksheet that we fill out for every organization that we work with. And each row here is a separate donor persona. Okay. So, like if I was getting back to the picture of the rock climber, I might name her Roxanne the rock climber and say, she likely lives in the Western United States. She really cares about nature and the environment. She's probably middle class to upper middle class, may have a college education, uh, likes the Sierra Club and dislikes pollution and poor environmental policy, right? Dislikes things like that. So, so Roxanne, you're hilarious. Um, so, so then I would think, okay, where is she spending her time? Well, she didn't look like she was young 20s. So she's probably spending time on Facebook. She's probably spending time on YouTube. TikTok's probably not the right place for her. She's probably spending her money on she may be spending her money on Facebook Marketplace. She may be doing some Amazon shopping. She probably spends a fair amount of time in her email with work, right? And she probably also spends time at the local climbing gym. Okay. So then I can figure out, all right, what's the best message for the best platform? Well, I know she's probably spending a lot of time on Facebook, and I know that pictures and videos are really effective on Facebook. So if I want to get in front of her there, I need to be using pictures and videos. I know that she's probably also spending time on YouTube and probably spending time watching videos about rock climbing or other activities in nature. And so I'd probably want to target videos like that with ads of my own, and they'll need to be video ads. I could probably reach her an email if I could capture her email address, but also I could almost guarantee that I will get in front of her and have a captive audience if I had some kind of marketing in or around that local climbing gym, right? So these are the things that you want to think through when you're building your donor personas. And most organizations will have a few of these, but the best place to start is, who are your donors now, right? And if you're going to reach new donors, what does that persona look like? This is especially important for organizations to do when most of your donors are connected to your board, right? So, and that's a lot of organizations that we work with. So here's a great example of how this works. Years ago, the St. Louis Zoo asked us to raise some money or to help them raise some money for endangered snakes in Armenia. Okay. And not a particularly easy thing to raise money for. But if we were going to do it, and if we were going to reach new donors with this campaign, then we were going to need to understand that people who were going to donate were likely to like reptiles, right? Or have an Armenian background, or both. Okay. So we created this campaign, and then we created messaging for two different groups. First group were people who were connected to reptile affinity groups on Facebook. And the second group were people who lived in dense Armenian immigrant populations around the US, right? And we were able to target messaging to people who loved reptiles, and target different messaging to people who lived in these Armenian immigrant communities. And over the course of 30 days, we reached 101 new donors and raised just over $7,000. So I always make the joke that this is probably all 101 people worldwide that wanted to donate to snakes in Armenia. So I think we found every single one of them with this. So that's the power, though, of knowing who your donor personas are, so that you can figure out how to speak to them, right? And so then when we're figuring out how to speak to them, we get into telling your story. And it's not good enough to know who they are. We have to speak to them, and speak to them in a way that's going to compel them to action. So here's what we use when we're talking about telling our story. We take each of those donor personas, and we work to figure out, Roxanne, what are your frustrations, wants, fears, and aspirations, right? So if we're talking about Roxanne, the rock climber, she's probably frustrated that it doesn't seem like we have much of a handle on this pollution problem, right? Our public lands seem to be in danger as well. And what she probably wants is, she wants more protection for our public lands. She wants us to do more about pollution, and she fears that if we do not take action now, what she aspires to, the world that she aspires to, where we're pollution free and our public lands are protected and accessible and pristine for future generations, that reality won't exist, right? So when we can talk to her in a way that speaks to her frustrations, to capture her attention, right, and drive a bit of urgency, and then connect those frustrations to the world that she wants. And then, by speaking to what she wants, we're able to connect to her emotions, right? And then get into really a sense of urgency about how we need to take action now, because if we don't, we're risking the things that you fear maybe being our reality. But if you join us, we can have this impact, and the impact is connected to the world that you aspire to see. Okay. And so I want to be very clear that this needs to be done in a way that it is not emotional manipulation. Okay. We're not working to emotionally manipulate our donors. We're just making sure that we're connecting the work that we do and the impact that we have to the things that our ideal donors already have an emotional investment in. Okay. So we're not manipulating their emotions to make them feel a certain way. We're speaking to the way they already feel. right? And that's a really important distinction because donors are smart enough now to see emotional manipulation from a mile away, and it's just not a sustainable way to raise money. But this storytelling quadrant and the principles here work for every piece of messaging you work to put together. We use this to build video scripts. We use it to build our Facebook ads. We use it to build email appeals. And it works really, really well. People feel like you know them and you're speaking to them as an individual. So here's the worksheet that we use as well. We've got, here, capture a donor's attention with a surprising statistic, fact, or anecdote. Under attention, we want to have bullet points for their frustrations and bullet points for their wants. Okay. And then you create a couple of sentences of copy speaking to the best bullet points. So over here is just brainstorming. You drill down to the best ones, and then you build a couple of lines of copy. You do the same thing for emotions. This is bullet points for wants and bullet points for aspirations. Okay. And same thing, building copy. Down here, urgency, it's fear and aspirations, and fear and frustrations, and then impact, it's fear and aspirations, right? And so what I love about this system is you end up with a list of copy ideas in each of these boxes, and then you can mix and match, right? You can think of through, what are these different ways that I can tell my story? How can I mix and match these to experiment with, what is the most impactful way for me to communicate with my donors? So it really builds a process where you're not reinventing the wheel every time you want to write a fundraising appeal, right? You can come back to this worksheet, fill this out, and have 5 to 10 different appeals based on how you mix and match those lines of copy. So put that to use. And this is an example of a campaign that we ran for a local park recently, and we knew that the park is like smack dab in the middle of like a hipster community, right? And so lots of craft brew drinkers in this community, lots of craft brew drinkers. So what we did was we worked with the organization to partner with a local craft brewery and offer a voucher for a discounted beer, and created messaging for the people in that surrounding community, and worked to drive $50 donations. And you can see here that we spent about $900 for this campaign and reached 143 donors, raised about $9,600. So we had like a 10 times return on our investment by using the right messaging and reaching the right donors with that messaging. So then we get into follow-up. And what's great, or what really you need to know about follow-up with giving days, is that the follow-up happens before the giving day begins, right? So the first thing you need to do is get your donors to schedule the giving day, okay? Because there's not a donor out there that will be thinking about Arizona Gives Day as much as you are as an organization. So the first thing that you want to do is get your giving day event on their calendar, all right? And then from that day that you get the event on their calendar up until the day after the event, that is where your follow-up happens, all right? And I believe AZ Gives Day, you're open for early donations, right? You can capture donations ahead of time. So
Yes.
yeah, that's a big part of this, right? It's a big part of kind of stacking the deck in your favor so that you have the momentum that donors like to see and get behind on that day. So um, typically we use a donor funnel for this. And really you'd be sending them emails or driving them to a landing page to get them to put the event on their calendar, right? You'd be using a pixel to tag them so that if you don't get their email address, they're not lost forever. When you tag them with a pixel, like using Facebook or Google AdWords or something like that, you're able to then retarget them to get them to put it on their calendar if they didn't right away. So say, okay, they finally put it on their calendar. Now you have their contact info. If you didn't already, what do you need to do? Well, you need to be sending them emails, and even better if you can advertise to them on Facebook, right? To let them know, hey, the event is on this day, but you can make your donation now, right? Get them to take action. And that may be 6 emails over the course of 2 weeks that gets them to take that action, and that 2 weeks culminating on AZ Gives Day, right? And so did they make their donation? Yes. Then you put them into a thank you series and then eventually back into your long-term nurture campaign. Or did they not make a donation? That's okay. What we love to do here at Gratitude is we love to send a thank you message for donating to everyone, whether they donated or not, right? A lot of donors will see your thank you message for donating, realize that they forgot to donate, and decide to donate right then. So we see thank you emails for donations like at the end of an event. So sending a thank you message to all of the donors, but calling in the email out, thank you so much to those donors who participated in this event. Because of your participation, we were able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. And a lot of donors who did not participate will take action and choose to make a donation after seeing that email. So with time for Q&A, the one thing that I do want to talk to you about, if you'll allow me, is I want to offer you guys Gratitude services to help with your Arizona Gives Day campaign. So every day of the year, we're running campaigns like this with nonprofits all around the world on our platform, and we've made an agreement with the Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits that we would work with you all to help you with your campaign on AZ Gives Day platform. So you don't have to leave the AZ Gives Day platform to work with Gratitude. Will help you create messaging, come up with creative ideas for your campaigns, and really drive success on this giving day. So we have this exclusive deal for Alliance of Arizona Nonprofits members, and that is if you choose to work with us and pay for your annual Gratitude subscription up front, we'll actually give you 2 additional months for free. So that's at least $1,000 value. And it's having Gratitude as a partner, as a fundraising partner for 14 months. When you work with Gratitude, you get your time back from digital fundraising, right? Which is a huge value. But you're also going to get all the tools needed to raise money digitally. You're going to get all of our guidance and expertise, and you're going to benefit from not only growth of your own, but also our company's growth, because we're working with hundreds of nonprofits on campaigns every single day, and we're learning from those. So every day we're getting better and better at fundraising. When you work with Gratitude, you get a dedicated fundraising expert, a digital fundraising expert, that does 30 days of discovery to understand what your nonprofit does, who you impact, what is the cost to have that impact, and who are your donors right now, and who are the donors that we should be helping you reach. So, you know, our kind of claim to fame is that we help nonprofits build digital donation generating machines. That's what we want to do, is build systems that can generate donations for your organization every day of the year, whether that be leading up to Arizona Gives Day or many days after. I started this company because I just love to help, and this seemed like the best way I could. So that's it. That's all I'll do for the hard sell. And we'll get back into Q&A. I will share a link for you all in the chat that you'd be able to sign up for a free one-on-one call with me just for attending the webinar.
Thank you, Ryan. And we did have one question about early state that donations can be accepted. So Arizona Gives is open year round, so you can actually utilize the website any time of year. However, specifically for Arizona Gives Day, the early giving period begins March 16, and any donations taking place March 16, which is a Tuesday, until Arizona Gives counts towards your grand total for Arizona Gives. So we see a significantly higher amount raised by organizations who begin their donation campaigns on March 16 or that week, because they're basically having 3 weeks of fundraising that's taking place during that time. We had another question come in. A question about whether Gratitude is a software or is it strictly a services business format? So Ryan, can you please answer that?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're both. So we're the first company that I know of to really pair this service with their software and have it included for one umbrella price. And we have a pay-as-you-grow model, so our interests are always aligned with your organization. So, we switched our model, well, at the beginning of this year because we felt like nonprofits needed more support in getting in front of their donors digitally. And it's been a lot of fun so far. It's a lot more fun with this model than it was with the previous crowdfunding model. So we get our hands a lot dirtier in the specifics of the fundraising now and are just able to offer a lot more support.
Yeah, so what Ryan shared with me is that they do have a type of CRM product if you want to use that. But if you have your own existing CRM software, they'll work with you with that as well. So they're kind of meeting you where you're at in your organization. And part of the reason we found that Gratitude could be a great partner for many of our participating organizations is because they understand what a giving day is. Not all fundraisers do, but it's also a year-round partnership. It's not just the giving day. And we know in this environment that we're all in, everyone is doing online fundraising, and some have a great understanding of it and others do not. So we want to be able to provide you with options. Of course, they were great in coming here today and also sharing how they may think about a campaign, how they put it together. So if that's not for you, you can use those tools to help you create your campaign as well. And Brian just dropped the link that he set up for the Alliance in the chat if you're interested in that. You're welcome to add questions into chat. You can also unmute yourself if you're brave and you want to ask a question live. We're okay with that as well. You can ask Ryan a question, or if you have another question for me for our Arizona Gives. We've got about 1 minute left. All right, I'm not seeing anything coming in. So I want to thank you all for being here today. We do have our next webinar coming up on December 14th at 10 a.m. That's a Monday as well. If you received the email and signed up that way, there's a link for that as well. We'll be sending out another reminder. We're excited to have you joining us again for this Arizona Gives Day and make this the most successful one yet. So I hope you all have a great and wonderful week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And Ryan, if you want to stay on board, that'd be great.